streets are not wide enough, and they're not straight enough to allow traffic to move very fast, as it does in many other cities. And so that noise is somewhat reduced here. And there are other parts, since this is very old part, several old parts of the town, buildings on it, castles and old buildings, where we're sitting right now. There's no traffic noise really that bothers us, because there just aren't any roads right here, and that's a result of the age of some of these buildings, and now they're monumental buildings, so they're going to stay here and they're not going to be torn down to make way for traffic. So it's a very special environment, I think, acoustically, being here, compared to, for instance, the traffic noise that you would get in a large city, any large city.
Like London.
Like London. Yeah.
And did you find any characteristic sounds that you would say, this is Corfu?
Not really, but then I haven't been listening for them because I haven't been here that long. We just arrived, and but the one thing I like about this place, as I say, is the fact that there are no there's not too many roads. So what happens when you create more parks and fewer roads is you do get different kinds of sound, like the sound that's quite close to us here, a group of 10 girls or so, and they're having a little meeting, and they'll probably make a lot of noise. But I personally would rather hear the voices of children than hear a lot of traffic noise on the street. I can't speak about London because I haven't been there for, 30 years or more, so I don't have any intention of going there. I've always found it very noisy. When I was there, I found it a very noisy city. But then so are all large cities. New York is also noisy, and so I try to avoid those cities. My life now is centered in the country. I live on a farm with Eleanor, my wife, and it is very quiet there, and that's where I'd like to be.
And Canada generally is quieter than other. Well, it used to be, at least.
Canada is a relatively quiet country, I think. I would, Toronto and Montreal can be quite noisy, but I don't think, and I haven't done any measurements. I used to, when I was at the university, we would go out with acoustical instruments and measure noises in various environments in various cities. I haven't been doing any of that work, but just my ears tell me that traffic noise in Toronto and Montreal is much quieter, much less than, say, in London or Paris. And I think it has partly to do with the construction of automobiles and buses and things of that sort. They just make more noise.
Europe and America, I don't know if you believe it's also a political kind of thing. If the politics have specific, or for example, a specific kind of society has specific kind of sounds as well. I don't know.
Well, I think very aggressive societies, and therefore probably the richest and the strongest societies make the most noise. That's fairly ordinary. I mean, when we had our meeting, the World Forum for Acoustic Ecology last year in Finland, and I think everyone experienced a really quite quiet environment in Finland. And it isn't only just the sounds on the roads, it's the way that people speak. They don't shout. There's a sign, that when you come into Finland and to do some research, and you go to one of the colleges or places to stay, and I remember seeing this sign saying the Finnish people are a quiet people, and they don't like to be shouted at. And if you speak quietly to them, they will reply quietly to you. And it's true. And very often in Finland, they'll wait if you stop, they'll wait for you to think again of what you are going to say, and then you say it again, and then there will be a pause, and then another person will speak, and perhaps another pause, and then another person will speak. It's a very different kind of environment from most other parts of the world. Um, so I think many different cultures have different kinds of excitement levels. You know, how many times do you, how many decibels do you want to have? You know.
Have you realized here, generally in Greece, they say that we have really loud voices and we do interrupt each other, and it's generally the Mediterranean people, and we had plenty of discussions that even maybe because we have more sun, it makes generally different kind of attitude to this as well.
Yeah, I think so. You're outdoors more, you see, because you have the sun more all year long. And so probably any culture which is outdoors is going to be louder than a culture which is indoors, because you don't have to raise your voice so much. But that's hard to say. I don't know, I'm thinking now of native Indians in Canada. They don't talk loud. They talk quite quietly, and they live outdoors all the time. So it's hard to say. I think some of these things are just cultural developments over hundreds of years. You know, that it's just polite to speak a certain way. Either it's polite to speak quietly or it's polite to speak loudly. I don't know. You know. We know that there is no such thing as silence, so it's a question of what kind of sound do you claim is silent when it isn't really silent. It just means that it's something that isn't bothering you at the moment. And so we can be in a quite quiet environment, which is not silent, but quite a quiet environment, and feel very comfortable in it. But some people, of course, would, in a quiet environment that I live in on a farm, they would find that far too quiet, and it would make them very nervous, because they would want to hear, so they turn on the radio and leave it on all day or something, just to have companionship of sound, the comfort of sound. But I don't know, I've never really studied different cultures, you know, to say why is it quieter in Greece than it is in Turkey, for instance. If this is true, I don't know.
I think they're similar in as
Yeah.
a,
Do you think they're
environment.
similar? Yeah.
At least the people, how they speak and everything.
Yeah.
We have similarities.
Oh yes. I think that's what's generally happening in the world, is that we're losing those small cultures, you know, those small independent cultures, because we're all driving the same cars. We all have listened to the same radio stations. We all are doing, you know, similar sorts of things. But there are still changes in in the acoustic environment that you would experience in different cultures, urban cultures, rural cultures. The people may be speaking the same language, but it's a different sort of.
So do you have any ways, apart from SED, if somebody is creating a soundscape and wants to keep this natural character of the soundscape, is there another way you can show and publish your work, produce your work, publish your work, and present it to people, apart from using SED, DVD installations? What else can be done, really?
Well, start using your ears.
How
instead of the technology, just use your ordinary ears to listen to things. I mean, we're everywhere you go, there are microphones.
Oops.
And you know, when you're on a microphone, you're performing. You're expected to be performing. You're expected to be speaking brilliantly and so forth. But if you're absolutely alone and there aren't any microphones around, then you're much more natural, and your voice probably is different, and you are not required to speak if you don't want to. So you're probably quieter generally than you are when you're in a public place. Um, I don't know. I certainly am aware of the fact that microphones are very much a part of my life, and they're a part of your life too, obviously, and of large number of people, and that does change the way we perhaps would be speaking. The fact that there's a microphone here, there is a third voice here, or you know, I shouldn't say a voice because it's quiet, but there's a third party here. There's a third person here listening to what we're saying.
But how else can you show your work? I mean, apart from live performances, maybe. Um, what else could follow the ethics of acoustic ecology, of the whole concept?
Well, I think the ethics of acoustic ecology are just be courteous to other people, and don't push yourself too far. You know, with other people, don't have huge expectations from them. Respect them if they want to be quiet, and if they want to speak, they'll speak to you. And so I think probably in different cultures, I've noticed this in the past, that in very militant cultures, um, speech is louder, you know, and in quiet cultures, countries where people don't want to be disturbed, things are generally quieter. Um, but that's just pretty obvious, I think.
It's it needs lots of investigation to understand why people are reacting like this. The only thing I could find for my project was when I wanted to, now that I want to present it to people, I was thinking again CD, but having eco-friendly case. I don't know how else I could engage with the whole ethics of acoustic ecology to say that yes, I love the environment, but yet you have to show it to people somehow. Somehow they have to listen to the things I'm doing because they are going to be stories. So not always I can do it live. Then I would have to go to a theater or something and start showing my piece. But otherwise, I don't know how else it could be done.
No, well, there's nothing wrong with our technology. We can use it various ways, but just remember that every time you print something that you've recorded or release something you've recorded, you're multiplying the sound. So we're adding more sounds to the world every time. Every time somebody turns on a radio broadcast and 5,000 people turn on the same broadcast, you've multiplied the sound by 5,000. So there's more and more sound in our lives than there used to be. There's no doubt about that. But in certain environments, fortunately, sound doesn't go beyond certain barriers. It doesn't travel as fast as electronic material travels, and it does fade out, and that's very fortunate. I mean, we don't want to hear all the people of the world speaking at the same time as we sit here in this nice quiet environment. Thank God that God made our ears in such a way that we can't hear sounds from other parts of the world and so forth. I think that was his genius or her genius, that made that possible. So I'm not going to be disturbed by too much. If I can find a nice environment with some friendly sounds in it, which is, I think, all that most of us want to find. It's nice to have some sounds that we recognize, especially, and I think that's one of the more frightening experiences when you go into an environment where all the sounds are different. And that can be just going to New York City, for instance, and that's a pretty frightening experience for me. Coming from now, as I come from living on a farm in Ontario to New York City or Paris or something, it really is a pretty frightening experience that didn't bother me when I was 20 years old.
The psychology changes as well. What
Yeah.
you expect from life, maybe.
Exactly.
20
Yeah.
years old, you want to live things.
You want to, you want to be
then
part
you
of the
have-
excitement,
yeah.
and the excitement is partly sound. So, yeah, definitely, you want to participate in that. But as we get older, I think we don't need it quite so much.